Hello everybody, my name is CulBlu and I'm bringing out this video of me reviewing a board game, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Votes for Women, which is about joining the American women's suffrage movement of 1848 through 1920 here in the United States, back when we only had 48 states instead of 50. Fingers crossed, we'll get 53 states, but I don't know, that's just me. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this one. So I have here just kind of things laid out. Let me zoom our camera out to our view, actual view. Oh, that's the wrong view. Is it the wrong view? I don't know. All right, let me get our background music started because you know I love my background music here. And we'll have that playing in the background. Let me clean all this up because I was trying to make it look nice and pretty here for the thumbnail. But yeah, Votes for Women. So in Votes for Women, it's a game where you are trying to play as either the suffragist, the people who are trying to fight for women's rights, women's voting rights, more specifically the 19th Amendment here in the United States, or you're playing the opposition, which is the side that is trying to stop or prevent the women's suffrage movement from passing, or the 19th Amendment from passing. And you do so, the game takes place over the course of many turns, many rounds, that's like the correctly and rightfully call it. And each round, each round you are playing cards and doing stuff, and it's a card-driven game, and you're trying to best your opponents. You're trying to get the number of votes. The game takes place over the course of two, essentially, modes. Mode number one, or phase one of the game, is the suffragists are trying to get Congress to send the 19th Amendment legislation back to the states. Oh man, I didn't fix it, did I? No, I did. It's fine. They're trying to get the 19th Amendment back to the states. And then phase two of the game is once you have your pillars here, once you've reached your requirement to get Congress to send it back to the states, then the real battle begins, where you're trying to get the states to vote yes or no in your favor. So the suffragists want the states to vote yes, and the opposition wants them to vote no. Let me adjust my camera again. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure this is the right view. I think my camera is slightly crooked, but it'll do. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's all crooked anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through the setup of the game, and then I will go over my actual things that I like, things I didn't like. Setup of the game, demo, and then things I like, things I didn't like, and then actually give a review, my overall score at the end of the video here. So feel free to use the timestamps to skip around to find the sections that you want to know about. But we're going to go ahead and go through the setup. So for setup here, I have our board. This is our player board. It is a map of the United States. We have some sections and some stuff down here. I have my campaigners. It should be 2 for each color. So 2 for the yellow, 2 for the purple, 2 for the red. This is a 2-player game, a solo game, or a 4-player game, or a 3-player game. And the way it plays is you can play one player, the suffragist, one team, the suffragists, versus another team, the opposition, which is the red players. And you can see here the suffragists, they have 2 different colors. They have yellow and purple. That represents the natural divisions of parties that came together on the fighting for women's suffrage that said, okay, we're going to work together for suffrage, but they had different ideals. More specifically, some of them had ideals like only the white women should vote, and others had the ideals of we just need everybody to vote. So there's different factions that exist in that because, white supremacy is still a thing here in the United States, even today. But going back into our continuation of the teach of the game, the opposition players, you can have 2 people play the opposition as well. They play a little bit differently, but they're all one unified color of the patriarchy, the men, the people who don't want, not just men, the patriarchy in general. Patriarchy impacts more than just women and more than just men. That includes all genders, even the ones in between. And yes, there are genders in between. If you're wondering where my political stance is on that, that's crazy because it's not a political stance. Let's not debate people's existence. Anyway, moving back into what I was talking about though, the opposition, they can play 2 players over there, so it can be 2v2. It can be 1 person playing the opposition, 2 people playing the suffragists. It can be 1 person playing the suffragists, 2 people playing the opposition. There's a whole bunch of different modes of this. I'm just explaining all that because I think it's interesting, especially as a teaching aid, to have so many different modes of the game. But the way I played it was I played the suffragists, and I played against the bot, who was the opposition. So that's how I'm going to be setting up here for my solo demo, setup and demo. So first and foremost, it's going to be buttons. You need buttons. So there's going to be buttons. There's going to be buttons of a few different types. There's like 6 different flavors of buttons. There's going to be the opposition's buttons. For a solo game, we're going to take all those out because we do not need them in a solo game. So we will put them away. Where did I put the rest of them? There they are. And then for the opposition. We don't need the opposition's buttons. For the suffragists, are the people who are fighting for women's rights. We need their buttons. There should be 4 different button designs, and they are going to be 3 of each, and it should be 12 total. So we need all 12 buttons. So I got all 12 of my buttons here. I'm just going to put those stacked right there, and I'll spread that out in a second. Continue on with our setup. For the opposition bots, we're going to use opposition bot cards. Because I'm playing solo on the suffragist side, we're going to take the opposition cards, which are for if a player's playing, a human's playing, and throw those back in the box, because we do not need those for the purpose of our playthrough. So we're going to take the opposition bot cards, we're going to split them up into their sections. There are 3 different sections, early, middle, and late. I'll bring it up over here on the screen so we can kind of see that a little bit more close. So there's late, there's early, and there's middle, and there should be a swath of cards for each one. There should also be 3 start cards that will say start on them, like so. And we're going to take the 3 start cards and put those to the side for now. So I'll put those to the side. But continuing with our stacks, we're going to take these stacks and we're going to shuffle each one of these 3 stacks individually. And then we're going to remove 2 cards from each stack here for the opposition bot. We're only doing this for opposition bot, by the way. So remove 2 randomly, and these will be out of the game, secretly out of the game, to shuffle the middle. And we should put the late at the bottom, the middle in the middle, the early on top, just to clarify. So these are the middle, so they go there. I'm gonna put this stack under the early. And then I'm gonna take the late, give that a shuffle. And then remove 2, and then put this at the bottom. And there we go. So the opposition bot, their deck is now set and ready to go. So I'm gonna put that over here to the side, up here, just barely off screen. And I'm going to take their start cards and put them here. I'll explain what these are for later. But for right now, opposition bot's set. For the suffragist, I'm going to take the suffragist cards, which I have here in my hand, and I'm also going to split these in their early, middle, and late sections. And I'm going to show, or I should also have a single start card for the suffragist. If you are playing 2-player with the suffragist, there's rules for how you deal with that, but I'm not going to explain those here because I'm playing solo. And we are going to shuffle each one of these, keep every single card in there, so no cards are removed here for the actual human players. And shuffle, 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 give those a good shuffle, and then place that down there, and then give the middle a shuffle, 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 give it a good shuffle, and then put that on top. And then finally, early, same thing, we're gonna give it a shuffle, and, okay, there we go. And then put that right so. There we go. And that is the suffragist player all set up. And I'll put my deck right there. And then I'm gonna have 1 card in my starting hand, which is gonna be my start card. And we're going to pause on that for a moment. Now, we're going to take our next set of cards, which are strategy cards. These are yellow cards with a yellow back. We're going to find the 2 cards that have stars on them because we're playing solo. We're going to remove those because we do not play with those when playing solo. And then shuffle the other 10 cards. And then just reveal 3. This is going to be our strategy cards that we have available for us to ante for. And I'll talk about that once we get to our rolling teach here. And then we're going to take our state cards, which there should be 12 of these as well. We're going to give these a shuffle, and we're going to remove 3 of these from the game secretly. And then we're going to take the other 9 and reveal them, and these are going to be the states that are in play. So these states are going to be in play for powers for the players to try to collect and utilize for their purposes. So we have Illinois, Pennsylvania, Texas, Ohio, Virginia, Utah, New Jersey, Georgia, and California. Now I'm going to, oh, you can barely see that. There you go. Okay, now you can still kind of barely see it, but it's a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to put these in order based on the region. If you look on the board, there's a 1 through 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to try to put these in like in their groupings based on their regions and colors, with 1 being over here on this side and 6 being over there. So we're going to have California and Utah right there, and then we're going to have the plains, no plains locations, nice. And then we're going to have Georgia and Texas right there. And then we're going to have the Midwest, Ohio and Illinois right there. And then we're going to have Virginia and Pennsylvania, and then New Jersey. So I'm just putting these cards like this, so it's a little bit easier to kind of quickly check and find out which ones go where. And then, like I said, the rest of these cards, which are the last 3 state cards that we didn't look at, and the 6 opposition cards we took out, we're going to put those out of the game. We're going to put a marker here on turn 1, and I'll rant more about that in a second, I promise. Because turn versus round, my gosh, war games, you're killing me. Then we're going to take our 6 pillars. You should have more than 6, but we're going to take 6 of these pillars. I like to put mine around, just kind of hold it here, like it's a holding space. But you can just put these off to the side. I was going to keep mine here. These are the pillars that are going to represent the progress of Congress actually getting ready to send these back to the states, send the 19th Amendment back to the state for ratification or for voting down. And additionally, you're going to have a slew of things. Actually, let me put the stuff that actually came with the game in here. 1 second. Just gotta set things up. Hold on a moment, almost there. Also came with this die. And I think that's all that came with the game. Okay, so you're gonna have a slew of stuff. Now this container I have here is from Q for Me. I'm not sponsored, I promise. I just like using this stuff. But you have a slew of stuff, and that slew of stuff is gonna be these D4s, and I'll talk more about that in a second. I know they look like D12s, but they're D4s. These D4s, these D6s, and these D8s. So it gives you a reasonable variety of different colors, which is useful for rolling multiple things at the same time, or just having more dice around the table so people can grab a die and roll it. You should also have red cubes here for the opposition, some extra opposition meeples, just in case you lose some or break some. Purple cubes here for the purple side of the suffragist side, and then purple meeples, 2 different forms. There's like this one here and this one with the flag. I like the one with the flag, but I just have one of each out here on the board. And then over here, yellow cubes, yellow players, same concept, yellow suffragist side, yellow cubes, and yellow thing. You also should have check marks, these nice chunky green wooden check marks, and these red X marks. I'm showing this because this is going to be part of my things I like, things I didn't like part. I just want to talk about the components. Okay, so you get all those things. I'm putting those to the side, and now we are prepared. We are prepared to start. In addition to that, I am just spreading this out so you can count how many buttons I have left, because it's going to be important to keep track of that here for the viewers at home. If you watch my playthrough, you know what I mean. And I have some extra dice that I'm going to also add to help me out. It's just a set of a D8 and a D6 in 4 different colors. So that's going to help me. Roll things a little bit faster and speed things up. Just a smidgen, not a ton, but it's something I like to do to help things go forward. And now we're ready to start. So when we start, we are going to run through a round. Now, I mentioned I was going to rant about this earlier, so I'll rant about it now. This game is designed in the war game world. For those who don't know about the war game world, or war board gaming, where you have like chits and bits, like little squares, little small squares, and like little dice that you're rolling and chucking across the table, and like measuring stuff and trying to figure out where you go. Well, I guess not that level of war gaming sometimes, but not all the time. In these games of chits and bits, you have a lot of times the connotation, the language, the words that are used are rounds and turns. So a turn is what us normal people call rounds, and a round is what us normal people call turns. And yes, I'm calling you out, Wargaming World. I think it's very silly. I think it's been a consistent thing that's been done for a long time. I don't know the exact backstory behind it. It's probably something really cool, but the main thing is that when it says turn, it's basically a round. So think of it as a round if you really want to just call it a round, and it helps you wrap your brain around it. And a round in this game is when I play a card, is when I do a turn essentially. So when I play a card and then my opponent plays a card, that's a round. So we finish the round and then we go to the next round, and that's round 1, round 2, round 3, and turn 1. Again, the wording, I will complain about it forever until I'm blue in the face, but just know that I will use the appropriate terms here for the game, but I just want to explain that for those who might be confused when I keep saying round 1, round 2, round 3. I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about the actual card play. Okay. Cool, now that we got that established, now we're on the same level, and now that all the war gamers out there are mad at me because I talked about their precious system that's really silly, let's go ahead and get into the game. So this game is going to happen over the course, or the turns are going to be taken over the course of a number of actions. There's going to be a few different phases. Phase 1, let me get the rulebook so I can call it correctly. Phase 1 is going to be the planning phase. Yep, the planning phase. Phase 2 is going to be the strategy phase. Phase 3, where all the action happens, is the operation phase. And then phase 4 is the cleanup phase, where we just kind of clean up stuff and check some things and then move on. So we're going to start here with the planning phase. And the order this always goes, the suffragist goes first, and then the opposition goes, in this case, opposition bot. So suffragist goes, opposition goes, and you do that until both sides have played 6 cards total. So you have 6 rounds in one turn. And then once that's done, we do our cleanup, and then we move on to turn 2, and then so on and so forth. We repeat everything until the game is over. The victory conditions, which are very important to know, for the suffragist side, which is my side, the victory conditions are for me to have the 19th Amendment passed. The victory conditions for the opposition side is to not have the 19th Amendment passed. That can happen in a few different ways, but the most prominent way, that can be resolved. Victories can be reached in a few different ways for the opposition, but for the suffragist player, I need to get 36 of these states to approve the 19th Amendment. The opposition player needs to get 13 states to reject or to vote no on the women's suffrage, the 19th Amendment. If the opposition player gets 13 states to say no, then they win immediately. Additionally, if my side gets 36 states to vote yes, then we win immediately. Now, I don't think I mentioned this here, but this game has two different modes. Those two different modes are two different phases. Phase one of the game, the first phase is to get Congress to send the 19th Amendment back to the states so they can vote. Because in the United States, we have our system that works that way for government, which is really neat and fascinating. It's about the history of it all and why we have it that way. I'm not going to get into the political science side of things, but it's really cool. I think it's cool personally. But we have the Congress is going to have to send it back to the states, and once Congress sends it to the states, that's where we start doing the fight to see who votes yes and who votes no. Now, the first half of the game, the first phase of the game, on the suffragist side, I want to get 6 pillars inside of Congress, and there are various ways I can do that. I can do that by a direct action that I can take, or I can do that by playing cards that say add pillars. But once I get my 6th pillar added, we immediately start the second half of the game. And that second half of the game is to get the states to vote yes or no. Now, we get states to vote yes or no by using our influence, and I'll explain more on this after I finish the first round, first few plays, because it will become very apparent as to how this happens. But whoever has 4 influence cubes in a single location gets a vote in their direction. If there are 4 opposition cubes here in Texas, for example, then Texas will say, no, we do not want the 19th Amendment. If there are 4 cubes here in New Mexico, for instance, then for the suffragist side, and I say side because remember there's 2 different colors, yellow and purple. So if there's 3 yellows and 1 purple here for the in New Mexico for the suffragists, and we've already passed or sent the legislation back to the states, then New Mexico will say, yes, we will love women's suffrage here, because it's about the side, not the colors, when it comes to suffrages. Now, one other thing to talk about here before we actually get into our rolling teach, because I decided to info dump for some reason anyway. I was trying to avoid info dumping, but here we are, info dumping, is that there can only be one side's color in the location. So using New Mexico as an example, if the opposition had 2 influence cubes there, and I, as a suffrage player, wanted to place 4 of my cubes there, what happens is I get to choose amongst these many colors that I have, how many colors I want to choose. So I can say, okay, I want 3 yellows and 1 purple. It's up to me to decide. There are reasons why you want to decide one way or the other. I'll talk more about it later. But for now, just know I want to put these 3 yellows and this 1 purple there. Now, what happens is when you place your cubes, every one of my cubes cancels out one of their cubes. So I can choose which ones cancel, like so. And then when that happens, this is the end result. So essentially what you have is that for every cube that I place, I can cancel one of my opponent's cubes. In order for me to get majority, or in order for me to get more cubes there, I need to put more. So if I were to place 2 cubes total in New Mexico, different example, this is the board state. I want to put 2 cubes total in New Mexico. I will simply just remove those 2 from the opposition, because I'm placing 2 as the suffragist side, and the opposition, I just cancel them out. So now it's empty. So that's how that works, which goes into the whole tug of war of how to get the locations. Again, in order to get a state on your side, you need to have 4 influence there on your side, and they vote yes or no depending on the direction. But that does not happen until the second phase of the game, which has not started yet. Okay, now that I've thoroughly info dumped the second half of the game for some reason, let's go ahead and jump into the actual playthrough of the game. Starting off with the planning phase. So start off with the planning phase. First thing that's going to happen is the players, so Oppobot's going to do nothing, but the players are going to draw their hand up to 7. So I have 1 card at the start of the game, and then at the end of every round, I'm going to have 1 card left over, and I'll keep it for the next round. So I'm drawing 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Done. And now that's happened, we're going to move over into the strategy phase. So for the strategy phase, I am going to ante how many buttons I want to spend to try to claim a strategy card. Now, in a 2-player game, in a game with actual humans on both sides, this will be done in the sense of the suffragist player would say, I'm going to bid this many buttons, and the opposition player says, I'm going to counter bid this many buttons. And if there's a tie, nobody gets anything. If there is a victor, then the person who won gets to choose one of these strategy cards, which are super strong, powerful cards, and claim it for themselves. So in this particular case, I'm playing against the Oppobot. So check the rulebook for more rules on how that works with actual humans. But for the Oppobot will roll this D4, which I said I was going to talk about earlier. I'll talk about in a second. Let me finish this thought. They'll roll this D4, and they will claim, or sorry, they will ante how many things that they rolled. So their ante is their roll. If the number of buttons that I bid, let's say I bid 3 buttons, and Oppobot rolled a 3, if it matches what Oppobot rolls during our strategy phase, then neither one of us gets anything. But if I say I bid 3 buttons, say I'm going to ante 3 buttons, I'm going to put up 3 buttons for bid, and Oppobot rolled a 4, then I lose, and Oppobot gets to take one of these cards randomly and then do the effect based on what it says in text for Oppobot. Just to bring it up a little bit closer, if you look at the card here for Bellwether State, you can see here it has text here for the humans, and it has text here for Oppobot. So if I get the card and I'm playing the opposition, then I can do what the red cube stuff says. If I get this card and I'm playing the Suffragist, I get to do what the other side says. So it just says the text for humans up top. And then if Oppobot gets the card, Oppobot will immediately do whatever this says down here, which can be detrimental, let me tell you. So in this particular case, I need to bid how many buttons I want to commit to this particular bet. So I am going to bid 4 buttons. That means that if Oppobot rolls a 1, 2, or 3, then I win. If Oppobot rolls a 4, then neither one of us wins, so nobody gets anything. But I would rather neither one of us win than Oppobot get some cards, because these cards are pretty strong and scary. I also want to say another thing. When playing solo, I don't know how it works in 2 players, but when playing or more human players, but in solo, no matter if I win or lose this bet, I'm going to spin the buttons that I put up for bid. So in this case, I'm committing to having 4 buttons being missing from my entire cache of buttons. So that's going to be out of the game regardless. And now we're going to roll to see what Oppobot's going to get. So we're going to roll this D4. Oh, I mentioned I was going to talk about it, rant about it eventually, but here we are. So this is a D12. This is clearly a D12 shape, but it has 3 values of each number. So that way it can be a D4. So it has the numbers 1 through 4. It has 1 3 times, 2 3 times, 4 3 times, and 1 3 times, 2 3 times, 3 3 times, and 4 3 times. So it's a D4. It's very frustrating, but I guess I didn't want to have caltraps in the box, or the little triangle dice in the box. So let's go ahead and roll it. So I bid 4. If Oppobot rolls a 3 or less, I get to choose a strategy card and claim it. If Oppobot rolls a 4, neither one of us gets anything. Starting off strong, Oppobot rolled a 3. So therefore, I get to choose a strategy card. Now remember, I've already paid my buttons, and I do have ways to earn buttons back, but it's a little bit difficult. So now I get to claim one of these cards here. So speaking of the cards, let's go ahead and look at what they do. So these are the strategy cards, and strategy cards are very strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose one of these. They're very strong, but they're not very convenient at this moment based on what showed up. So looking at the cards here, we have, like I said, the text for the humans, text for the bot at the bottom. Given my current board state, I think I want to take Counterstrap. Counterstrap says remove 1 card that is in effect for the remainder of the turn and place it in the appropriate discard pile. That can help me out a little bit. Actually, no, I take it back. I want Bellwether State. I'm taking Bellwether State. This is a reasonable time to take it. So I take Bellwether State. That's going to be the strategy card that I'm going to claim. When I take a strategy card or a state card, which I'll talk about how to get those later, I'm going to just add it into my area over here, and I can choose to play this. I can choose to play a strategy card or a state card in addition to the single normal card that I'm playing during one of my rounds. So I had to play either before or after, and it's counts for both. So if I had California and I had this strategy card in my hand, I could choose to play California first and then play my normal card, but I would not be allowed to play another state card or strategy card that round. Subsequently, if I played this card first and then I played Bellwether afterwards, then I would not be allowed to play California at the same time. So I can only play one of these per round, per time I get to play a card essentially. So I got to be very careful about how I plan that out, but it gives me opportunity to play 2 cards at once. One is a strategy or state card, and then the other one is my normal card I'm going to play during that turn anyway. Okay, so I just want to talk about that for normal people. We do refill the strategy card side. So it's going to sit there and just look pretty until next time. And now we start. So now we're onward to the operation phase. So for the operation phase, I, as the Suffragist player, am going to start with the first turn. You notice that the map is quite empty. Don't worry, it'll fill up in a second. But let's go ahead and try to figure out what cards we have. So I have this hand of cards, so I'll bring it over here on the green screen so we can all look at it together. So I have this hand of cards. I have property rights for women. The card has a few pieces of information, what phase of the game this card is from, the title of the card, the effect of the card, and then some history. Sometimes they'll have symbols like this that'll go to the side. I think this card, property rights for women, might be a reasonable card, but we'll think about it. Next is going to be Francis Willard. It allows me to add a pillar in Congress and receive 2 buttons. Remember, putting 6 pillars down here in Congress, I need to do that for the first phase of the game so I can even make it to the second phase of the game. So in order to win for me on the suffragist side, I need Congress to send this back to the states. So I will eventually need to get 6 pillars over here in Congress. So this card is not terrible. It's just maybe not as impactful. It just depends on what happens. Susan B. Anthony, indicted. That allows me to get a button and then add 1 influence into each, or 1 state of each region. Reconstruction, I can only play this card if Civil War is not in effect and the 5th Amendment, or 15th Amendment is in play. It is not currently in play. That's one of my cards and I don't have it right now. And then it lets me do all those fancy things. Petition to Congress allows me to add a pillar into Congress and then add 1 influence to each state of each region. National Women's Rights Convention, playable Civil War is not in effect. I get to add 1 pillar into Congress. Man, I got a lot of ways to add pillars in Congress. And then finally, my start card, Seneca Falls Convention, allows me to add 1 purple and 1 yellow campaigner in the Northeast region and receive 2 buttons and add 2 influence in New York. So, I said a lot of words, I said a lot of things, I just basically read a lot of cards. There's a lot of history and stuff over here too, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take my first turn. We're not playing a full game, so I'm not really worried about strategy. I'm just gonna go and just start playing stuff. So we're gonna start with our start card, Seneca Falls Convention. It's gonna allow us to add 1 campaigner of purple and 1 campaigner of yellow in the Northwest region. And then I get to receive 2 buttons and add 2 influence in New York. So I'm playing that card. Oh, there's also historical text down here. Led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. Lucretia Mott. The resulting declaration of sentiments helped advance and shape the struggle for women's suffrage. Also, there's like something on the screen here. It's always something on my screen. I don't understand. Like, I swear I wipe it clean and it's just all over, everywhere. All right, anyway, trying to get the little specks off so it doesn't look too unpleasant. All right, so that card goes to my discard, and I get to add 1 purple and 1 yellow campaigner in the Northeast, and I get to add 2 influence into New York. Now, one thing to note is that notice it said, also get 2 buttons. Nice, I'll take that. Notice it said add 2 influence in New York, and it shows purple or yellow. I can choose what colors that I want to do. There are reasons why you might want to do one color or the other, but I'll let you all discover that as you play the game because it's part of the surprise. So I'm going to add 2 yellows in here into New York. And that's it. My turn is over. So now my turn's done. Now I could have, actually, I think I will. I will play Bellwether right now. So Bellwether says select 1 state and remove any red cubes and add 4 influence of my side. So I will do that. So we're gonna play Bellwether State. Now this card will go out of the game normally. I like to put it into my discard pile so I can tell a story once I go back through it if I'm feeling that adventurous. But really it goes out of the game forever. So I'm just gonna put that in my discard. Again, it goes out of the game normally, but I'm just putting it in discard. Now the reason why I'm gonna do that card right now is because it allows me to add 4 influence into 1 state and then basically put 4 influence. In order to gain these state cards down here that I have not talked about, these state cards require me to have 4 influence in a single location. If I do, for instance, if I put 4 influence in New Jersey, then I can claim this state card for myself. Subsequently, if I put 4 influence in Pennsylvania, I can claim this state card for myself. And this state card is just as powerful, and not as powerful, but quite powerful. It's a very powerful card, so I would like to have all these state cards if I can. That's my goal, me personally. So as a result, what I want to do with that Bellwether card I just played is I want to try to claim one of these powerful state cards as soon as possible. And I think I want to do that for the South cards because the South is a lot harder to fight for. So I'm going to go ahead and put 4 influence here in Texas. It does matter what colors I send, so I'm going to choose to do 2 and 2. Again, it does matter because there are cards that the opposition bot can play that say things like remove all purples or all yellows go back home. And there are cards that I can play that things like, well, actually, the campaigners will generate cubes based on their color, which we'll talk about later. So for right now, I put 4 influence cubes here in Texas, so therefore I qualify to take the state card. It is mine, and it will never go away from me. I can choose to play it like I did a strategy card earlier, but remember, I can only play one state or strategy card during my turn, either before or after. Not during, so before or after my turn. So in this case, or before or after my turn that round. So next time around, I can choose to play the text card if I really wanted to, but I'm not gonna, because you'll see why. You'll see why. It's gonna get weird. Okay, so my turn is completely done. I've committed all the things that I'm gonna commit to, and we move on to the Oppobot. So Oppobot is gonna play one of their starting cards. You'll notice here the starting cards, they all have specific trigger text, and that trigger text says play on turn 1, round 1, or play on turn 3, round 1. Turn 3, round 1. Oh. Interesting. Okay, I played that wrong earlier. My bad. Yeah, play on turn 5, round 1, so on and so forth. Yeah, I definitely played those wrong. I didn't realize it was... No, this is right. This is right. No, okay, sorry. Again, this is where the whole turn around thing is like got me all flip turned upside down, because turn 3, round 1 makes me think, okay, round 1 on turn 3 do this. It's like, no. On turn 3, round 1, the first card it plays, do this thing. So that's very frustrating to look at. All right, anyway, let's get this in the right order. So I'm going to be playing this card here for the Oppobot, is what I'm trying to say. So we're playing this card right now for the Oppobot, so we'll do that. It's going to be the Patriarchy. So what does it say? The Patriarchy says play on turn 1, round 1, and add 1 campaigner in the south. Right there. And then add 1 influence in each state in the northeast, so northeast, the Atlantic and Appalachia, so all of here, green, the south, which is all of here in the south, and the Midwest. So they're adding 32 cubes to the board because there's 8 different states in each location. There's 4 locations, so they're adding 32 cubes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove 1 color, so 1 cube from here, 1 cube from here, and then I'm going to add 30 cubes to the board for the red player, 1 in each location. So this is going to take me a minute, but we'll go ahead and power through it for the demo. And this always happens when you play against an Oppobot, so you could theoretically just kind of skip. I don't want to say skip, but you could preset the board just by having the Oppobot's initial cubes out. But I like to show it happening because, it's like, oh no, the Patriarchy, they're all coming together. First coined in 1632, reading the history, first coined in 1632, Patriarchy describes a social hierarchy and system of political power dominated by men for their own advantage. And keep in mind, the Patriarchy harms more than just women, more than just feminine persons. It harms men greatly. More specifically, some people make the argument, and I agree with this argument, that Patriarchy makes men subservient. So that way they can perform patriarchy to prove their manliness and do really dumb stuff and dangerous stuff. Things like family annihilation. Okay, cool. Moving on from crime documentaries back to our game here. We have the Patriarchy causing a lot of influence being placed all over the board. You can see here it just starts early, just going to be spreading. And we are... one more. We will be all set. And there we go. So the Patriarchy has struck. They're saying, we don't want this, bar humbug, says all the men. And that is, says all the patriarchy folks. Just because it's patriarchy doesn't mean only men participate in it. Women also participate in patriarchy, and non-binary folks too, but different conversation. All right, continuing on, we have my next card here for my next round. This is round 2 of turn 1. So I'm going to choose which card to play. I think I got a lot of cards that put pillars in Congress, which is a little weird. So I'm just gonna go ahead and lean into it. Let's lean into it. I'm gonna do Francis Willard. Francis Willard says I get to receive or add 1 pillar to Congress. Oh, I took this off the board. My bad. I like to keep them on the board because they look really nice. They're nice little columns, nice little chunky columns. And I put 1 pillar in Congress, and then I also receive 2 buttons. Not very impactful, but still pretty nice. Done. Now we move on to Oppobot. Oppobot's going to play a card. We're going to draw from the top and then do the text. The text here says New York Papers. It says place 2 influence for the opposition in each of New York and New Jersey. And that's it. So we're going to unfortunately do that. So we're putting 2 influence in New York and New Jersey. So here's, oh man, they almost got 4 in New Jersey. That's not good because New Jersey is one of those places. I need to worry about that. All right, and over here, they're going to cancel out mine in New York and put 1 of theirs. So as you can see, they're spreading fast. They're spreading fast. All right, knowing that they're spreading fast, I'm going to go ahead and take an action of campaign. Oh man, I super didn't play that correctly, did I? All right, we're gonna discard a card. So during my turn, I didn't explain this earlier, but during my turn, I can do a number of different actions. And again, get more schmutz here on the screen. Oh, is that on the screen or is that on the table? That might be on the table. No, that's definitely on the screen. Wrong button. I didn't talk about it during earlier, but during my turn, I can do one of a few things. Thing number one I can do is I can play a card for the event, like I did earlier. Thing number two that I can do is I can discard a card to do a campaign action, which I'm going to do now. I'll explain that later. Thing number three is I can discard a card to petition to Congress to try to get, or to, is it petition to Congress? What's it called? Lobby Congress, I think is what it's actually called. I can lobby to Congress to get them to, be a pillar here. I have to roll a d6 and I get some results and stuff. And then finally, the fourth thing I can do is I can discard a card to gain buttons equal to the number of campaigners I have active on the board, which in this case I would gain 2 buttons. I can have no more than 12 buttons. I have 12 buttons, so there's no need for me to do that. But those are my other actions that I can take. And I can discard a card to do a lobbying action. I have to roll a d6 for each campaigner I have, and for every 6 that I roll, I get a pillar. Okay, got it. So I can get multiple pillars in one go if I get really lucky on my roll. In addition to that, we can also discard a button. Anytime we have a dice roll, that's for us, not for our opponent, but anytime we have a dice roll on our side, we can discard a button, like spin a button to re-roll everything. And I just want to clarify, it's re-roll everything for that particular roll. So that is a thing that we can do. We can also use buttons to pay for some other stuff, which will come up in the game. But I wanted to mention all that because I need to get this under control because they're about to take New Jersey and I don't want them to take New Jersey. So what I'm going to do is, I discarded a card already. I'm going to discard, did I discard it already? No, I didn't. Okay, I did not discard a card already. We're on turn 3, we're on round 3. So I'm going to discard a card so I can get some stuff going. So I'm going to discard Petition to Congress, and I'm going to do a campaign action. Now with the campaign action, before I actually do the campaign thing, what I can do is I can choose to spin a button to teleport or move one of my campaigners anywhere on the board, essentially to the west, to plains, to Midwest, or down here into the south, wherever I want. I am going to go ahead and spin a button to move one of my campaigners. I'll move the purple one down here to the south, so I can try to counter a little bit what they're doing down here. And then I'm going to leave my other campaigner up there. Now, after that's done, I will now go ahead and do my campaign rolls. Now, campaign rolls is I'll take this D4 and I'll roll it. Depending on what I roll, I will generate that many influence based on the color of the campaigner that's in the location. So in this case, I can choose to, I will roll here for Texas, here for down in the south, and I'll roll a D4, and I rolled a 4. Hey, I'll take it. So I rolled a 4. I'll keep it. I can choose to spin the button to re-roll that, but I'm going to go ahead and keep it. So this campaigner is going to produce 4 purple cubes because it's a purple campaigner. I can choose where to put those purple cubes. In this case, because I want to try to protect the South, I want to go ahead and just produce those on spots that I think are going to get flooded. So we're going to put one here in Mississippi. We're going to put one here in Alabama. We'll put one here in Georgia, and we're going to put one over here in South Carolina. And that's going to be 4 cubes placed. Now, I could have, if I wanted to, I could have just put all 4 in Mississippi. That's my choice. I could have put all 4 purples in Mississippi and then left the other ones there, but I wanted to try to clear the board. I want to try to wipe out some of this patriarchy to counter it, because I want to get good board state and try to prepare myself to win. I also want to try to claim Georgia, because Georgia is a card down here, it's a state card that allows me to receive 2 buttons if I spend it, so I can do some really cool stuff with that, but that's going to be my campaigner for here. Now, each campaigner is separate, so I got to roll for this campaigner up here. So we're going to roll a D4, and she got a 4. Hey, we're doing good for a demo. Heck yeah. So we're going to put 3 here in New Jersey. So we're canceling all 3 of those, and then we're going to put 1 over here in New York. So we effectively just nullified a lot of what the patriarchy did. We still got a ton of work to do, but that's my campaign action. My turn is done. We now move over to the opposition bot. I could play the Texas card if I want to, but I'm not going to, because I want to set that up for something better. All right, so moving on to the next one, we got here, the opposition bot is going to play this card, which is going to be Old Dixie. It says add 1 influence in each of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. All right, well, all my work just got undone. Okay, and this is the tug of war that we're going to face for the rest of the game, huh? All right, so they're doing Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Okay, and that's their turn. Now, the Oppobot has cards, I should have mentioned this before, but they have cards that sometimes they say if. They say if this is in play, or if this happens, then do that. If the opposition bot has a card that says if, and that is not true, they will instead discard the card to campaign. And they'll campaign similar to how I campaign, but they have a dice roll system they'll use. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But for right now, that's going to be essentially what we're going to land on. So, moving on into the next part, I get my next turn. So for my turn, I'm going to do something silly. I'm going to play Property Rights for Women. The silly thing about this is I should have played this before I campaigned. But I'm going to play Property Rights for Women, and this is going to allow me to roll d6s instead of d4s when I take a campaign action. This card is going to last, it has a symbol here, it's going to last until the end of the turn, so until the end of the round, until we're done with our 6-card play. So the earlier I play this, the better, but the silly thing is I played this later, I should have played this earlier. The Property Rights for Women is not silly. And reading the historical text here, it says, called the first Jewish feminist, Ernestine Rose wrote the first petition to secure women's property rights, a change that fueled the suffrage movement. Nice, really cool stuff. I love the history that this game just like kind of brings to the forefront, the good and the bad. All right, so that's my entire turn. I'm going to do nothing else. Oppobot's going to go. Oppobot's going to go ahead and play here. Southern Resentment. Play it. The Fifth Amendment is in effect. The 15th Amendment is in effect. It is not in effect. Therefore, the Oppobot's going to discard this card and they're going to campaign. So the way the opposition bot campaigns is what they're going to do is they're going to roll a d6 to figure out what state they're going to based on the numbers here. So we're going to roll a d6 for them. They rolled a 6. So they're going to walk themselves up here to the northeast, which is a 6. And then they're going to first prioritize targets. If there is a state card that's available, which there is, it's New Jersey, they're going to send all of the influence they're about to generate to that location. So they're going to target New Jersey. If there was not a state card down here, they would instead roll a d8. And you can see how the states all have numbers in them in each region. They're going to send all of their influence to that one region that they roll. But in this case, there is a target card here. So therefore, they're going to roll a d8. So let's get a d8 for them. A d4, my bad. They're going to roll a d4. And this is how many influence we're going to put in New Jersey. They're putting 2 influence in New Jersey. So they'll put 2 reds in New Jersey. Now you see why I wanted to clear it out from earlier, because that could have been bad. If the Oppobot places 4 influence there before I do, they'll claim this card and they'll play it immediately, and then this one allows them to do whatever that says. So I want to prevent that if I can. That's going to be my everlasting fight for the way I like to play this game. Some people like to just go willy-nilly with it, but for me, I'm like, nope, you can't have it. Nope, rejected, denied. All right, so we're going to play one more turn. One more round, and then we'll move on to our review, because this is pretty much the entire game. We go back and forth. The only thing you haven't seen is how the voting part goes, but it really is just have 4 influence, and then you get a check mark or an X. Whoever gets 13, if the opposition gets 13 first, they win. If the suffragists get 36 first, then they win. If it gets to the end of the game and neither has reached their target number, then we'll do final votes, which I've never done. I never made it that far. I just got rolled or was able to hold long enough in this game, so take that how you will. The rule book explains how all that works. I can't explain it, unfortunately. All right, moving on to here, though. Finishing my last round before I finish and go into my actual things that I like, things I didn't like, and then go into my rating of the game. I want to go ahead and play Susan B. Anthony Indicted, because that gives me a button back, and the rest of these cards are not super useful. So Susan B. Anthony Indicted, this card says receive 1 button. There's 1 button available. Perfect. And then it says add 1. Oh, actually, no. You know what? I'm not doing that. I'm going to campaign. I just said, I needed a campaign. I'm going to campaign. I'm discarding this card to campaign. I don't need the button. I mean, it's nice to have the button, but I don't need it. So I'm going to roll a d6. Because I have property rights for women, I get to roll d6s instead of d4s for campaign actions. So we're going to roll a d6 to figure out how many influence we get to place down here in the south. Remember, we want Georgia, so if we can get a 5 or better, I'm happy. Hey, I'm super happy. It's a 6. All right, so I rolled a 6. So I'm going to put 5 influence here in Georgia. So I'm going to put I'll put 3 purples and 1 yellow. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm putting all purples because I'm doing campaign action. So I'm putting 4 purples here, and then I'm going to claim the Georgia state card. And I can claim multiple state cards at a time, by the way, if I happen to get them. And then afterwards, I'm going to put one influence over here in Louisiana to cancel that. And that's done. So that was 5 here, 1 there. And now I'll move up here to New York. Let's go ahead and roll. Any 2 or higher, please. A 6 again. Wow, I'm just rolling well. All right, so I rolled a 6. So we're gonna do 6 here in New Jersey. So we're gonna claim that card. Okay, and we claim the New Jersey card. And we can now also play one of these cards we want to. Sure, I'll play one of these cards just because I can. I'm gonna play the Texas card. It's not gonna do anything, but no, you know what? I'm not gonna play it. I'm gonna hold on to it. I'm gonna try to hold on to these for later, for when I need them. I have plenty of buttons. I got 11 buttons out of 12, and there's no need for me to burn these cards early, and I will hold on to them. And that's it. My turn's over. The Oppobot's gonna go. Then we keep going back and forth. At the end of the turn, essentially what's gonna happen is I'm gonna have 1 card left. I'm gonna do everything I did before, draw 6 cards, and then we're going to do the anti-phase. We're going to choose we're going to find out who gets the strategy card. After that goes, then we're going to go into our turns or go into our rounds, and then we'll move on. And the game keeps going over and over until we reach the end of the game or until somebody reaches their victory condition. So feel free to check out my playthrough if you want to see a full demo example of it all, or check out the many videos that exist on the internet, especially Heavy Cardboard's video. Shout out to Heavy Cardboard. They do cool stuff. They're the reasons why I know about this game. See, I'm telling you, it's always cool to get in front of people. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about my actual things that I like, things I didn't like, and get into my rating of the game. So starting off with things that I liked. I like a ton of things about this game, which is an unfortunate thing. And I say an unfortunate thing because I feel like the subject matter of this game is something that some people would just walk away from. But for me, it's the exact opposite. The subject matter of this game is talking about women's suffrage, but not just women's suffrage in a vacuum. It's talking about the subject matter of women's suffrage in a vacuum in a time period in America where America was exceptionally more racist and exceptionally more openly bigoted than it is today. And I'm saying that as somebody who has a lot of love for my country because I'm an American through and through, born and raised, and so is my family and my family before that. But as you notice from my skin tone here, I am very much a black man. And as a black man, there's an intersectionality that exists because I benefit greatly from the patriarchy that exists in our country, but I also have to deal with racism that exists in our country. And it's like this duality of like, on the one hand, oppression, yes, because blackness, and people look at me and think things and assume things, prejudicially or not, but through law as well. As in, sometimes I'm driving and cops will just turn the lights on for no reason. It's like, why? And it's like, oh, well, I just, your tail light's out. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, my tail light was actually out, but still, oppression. I'm joking. All right, sorry, I don't mean to make light of a serious situation. But also I had the other side of it where as a man, as somebody who is a cis man, born a man, still a man, cis through and through, all respect and love, protect the dolls, protect all trans folks, trans people deserve all the rights in the world. But going back to what I was saying, as somebody who exists in that patriarchal side of things, I do benefit greatly from patriarchy. So the theme of this game, the context of this game talking about women's suffrage, when you have this crossroads of people who are on the suffragist side who are fighting for women's rights to vote, both men and women, mostly women, but a lot of men too, and a lot of family members of those people too. And then you have racism on the other side, white supremacy, being a very dominant factor, as in a very beneficial card here for the suffragists is the Southern strategy, which was extremely detrimental to black folks and people who are not white, especially if you're not a white man. But it is a powerful card here for the suffragists, and it comes back to bite them in the butt when the opposition plays certain cards that say, "Oh, you play Southern strategy, I'm playing this card," and it basically turns things awry. And it's just like this very interesting dynamic, and like nearly foaming at the mouth I am speaking about it because it's just for me the history of like this is fighting for women's right to vote. We're fighting for the enfranchisement of a people to make sure that everybody has can fight for what they want to, advocate for what they want to, and actually have a say in the government that's actually governing them. The safety of their lives, the condition of their lives, hopefully improving the material conditions of how they exist. But we also have racism and misogyny and patriarchy. And sometimes you have people who you thought were allies and aren't, and like this game really leans into it with the cards it has. I would make the argument that of the games that I've played that have dealt with like historical like things that I'm like super fascinated with, like using John Company as an example and using Core Discovery as the exact opposite side of an example, it deals with the subject matter in a way that's exponentially closer to John Company, where John Company as a game, I always give it all the praises it deserves. So shout out to Cole Worley and crew for making that game. But it basically makes you like fully reckon with the systems that you existed in. And that one is the East Indian Trade Company and basically the birth of capitalism effectively. And just kind of like what you're doing. It's like, yes, you're sending your people out to fight. You're sending your militias out in the John Company out to fight. But you are conquering, you are colonizing India. You are stealing resources. And when they fight back, it sucks because like, man, my profit. But also they're fighting back for their homeland. Wouldn't you fight back for your homeland? And it basically makes you think about, it's like, man, we are the baddies. Are we the baddies? And the answer is yes, you're the baddies. But it really makes you reckon with that from the perspective of why those families were doing it for the John Company side of things, and why people would fight back from India and all the places that you're attacking. And also just like the mechanics of like the skullduggery and all that back and forth. It's just such a phenomenal game, especially like a social experiment with a group of people. And especially for teaching the history that existed in that's a little bit opaque and not as well talked about. So John Company, I think of as like a phenomenal example of using history and stuff. And I think in Votes for Women is doing a similar thing. It's not doing the exact same thing. We're not going out with hatchets and actually like, attacking bars. We're not actually dealing a ton with at the same time oh my gosh. What's the word I'm looking for? Prohibition. Prohibition exists in this area, in this era for sure, because prohibition and women's suffrage go hand in hand. At least from what I understand from Ken Burns' documentary on the whole situation, which is actually a very fascinating documentary, highly recommend it. But it's not leaning into it as in like everything's happening, you see it all, because you have to kind of pick and choose what you put in the game, focusing mostly on the women's suffrage part. And prohibition, yes, it existed and it does have an impact on things. But it's interesting because like those two things I know historically existed at the same time. Like the women's suffrage movement grew with prohibition becoming a thing to stop women, children, and like other people getting basically hurt by their menfolk that exist in their life and abused, so they can fight back. And that's what prohibition became a thing, saying, hey, let's just ban alcohol. And it turned out to be a terrible thing. One of the few amendments that ever got repealed. And it's really cool. But this game deals with the history of Votes for Women. It deals with the history of like the different parties that were involved, the different interests that were involved, how those things had interplay with things like racism, how those things had interplay with things like migrants coming into the country, how those things had interplay with as more enfranchisement happened, more pressure got put on Congress and Congress reacted. Sometimes Congress would do things like pull their votes away. Sometimes Congress would be compelled to do things. There would be marches and demonstrations. This game just has it all just kind of present, and it's just dripping with the history. And the gameplay mechanics match that. Like things that are very subtle. Like I watched a few interviews with Tori, the designer of the game. Tori, what's your last name? Oh my gosh, why isn't I printed? Sorry, just dropping stuff. It's printed on the front of the box, but I didn't have it in front of me, so let me find the front of the box. Tori, is it Tori Lane? Nope, Tori Brown. Got it. I knew it. I watched a few interviews with Tori Brown talking about trying to find like cards. There are cards where like senators are voting against the suffrage, so you remove a column to represent that, and they'll add some patriarchy. They'll add some opposition in their states that represent those. And she had to like find those documents where people made comments in passing that gave the signal that they were against women's suffrage. And it's just so interesting that like all that research, all that work, all that homework was done and put into the board game, and the board game plays well enough. I have a few qualms with how the board game plays. I'll talk about my negatives, but this whole entire positive section could be literally filled with just me talking about how much I love the history this game is talking about and how it's presented, because I think it's presented in the most correct way, at least based on how I've seen other histories presented, the most correct way that you could possibly present this history without going into like a super ultra 7,000 mechanics type game. So trying to strike that balance of like simplicity plus history plus actually telling the story correctly plus actually having the impacts on the board match what the card is saying. It's just so cool, and it's just so amazing, and I think that this game deserves all the praises for that. It deserves all the flowers for that. Another thing that I want to speak on the positives, now that I'm kind of stepping on my soapbox from the history side of things, is that I think this game does a really great job of keeping everybody in the game the whole time. This is one of my complaints for a negative, but it's also a positive. When playing as the opposition bot, it feels like the opposition bot stalls on rounds like 4 through 6. The opposition bot just stalls. Like it just ends up like kind of spinning wheels. And maybe it's just me understanding the strategy around that time period, or maybe it's just the Oppobot does get less cards that are doing things like putting a bunch of influence on the board. But as a result of the Oppobot kind of slowing down around that time period, it ends up feeling like, okay, there's time for me to catch up. I can fight back. And also, I should say that I've only played this game solo, and I've only played as the Suffragist, of course. So as a result of that, maybe this is an opinion that really doesn't match the reality if you play multiple people, like play opposition side or play 1v1 with a human. But it just felt like the opposition bot slowed down. So again, it's going to be in my negatives for sure, because I feel like the Oppobot should just put the pedal to the metal and just go ahead and end me. But also, it gave me time to catch up, and it felt like I was always in the game, even when things were perilous. For example, one gameplay that I did that won't see the light of day because I placed the rules wrong. More specifically, I didn't play the Oppobot start cards properly, because I got turns around mixed up and it was really weird. But one thing that happened was that the Oppobot had 12, keep in mind they need 13. They need 13 no's to win. They had 12 no's on the board, and they had those 12 no's from round 4 onward. And what happened was that I got a card on round 4, or sorry, top of round 5, that said turn a no into a yes. So I did it. So sorry, actually it was this one, reconsideration, which is turn a no vote and put 2 influence instead. And I was able to put 2 more influence on top of it and do something cool. So I essentially got to play that card because I played Southern Strategy. And then the Oppobot immediately played a card that says turn a yes into a no. And I was like, what is this? What is this nonsense? So that happened back to back. So it seems like there's definitely ways for that the game gives you to kind of catch up, is what I'm trying to say. But I feel like the opposition bot slowed down a little bit. It gave me time to stay in it and stay competitive and keep me engaged. It was definitely an uphill battle, and I definitely did not win that game. The Oppobot definitely got to 13 before I got to 36. But I was close. I was at like 27 before they got to their 13th. But that little bit of stalling means that maybe there's a little bit more thought that was put into the balance of things to make sure that the Oppobot is not just smashing your face in, and also make sure that you can't just steamroll Oppobot with your strategies and cards that come out. I guess depending on the order of stuff that comes down, depending on what you prioritize, the game changes dramatically. But I think that's a positive for the game, because that means for those that are looking for more of an in-depth strategy game to kind of dig into and sink their teeth into while the history is all cool and all, having reasonable mechanics is definitely the attractor for this game. I think the mechanics are well enough. Again, I have a few qualms with it, and I'll talk about those in my negatives, but I want to say that is a positive, that the balance of this game seems like it's figured out in a reasonable way. And yeah, I think that's pretty neat. So speaking of the negatives, I want to go ahead and just fall into those. There are 2 negatives that I have for this game. One is it's a closed system, and then 2 is when it comes to what's the best way to say this? Let me think. When it comes to what's happening mechanically, it is kind of boring. So closed system means, when I say that, just starting there first, closed system, the cards, you always have the same exact cards every time. The order is what changes. So it gets into a potential situation to where it's like, hey, I know what's coming up, or hey, I know this thing is going to exist. So really, the excitement for the game comes in what order do you play stuff in? How do you manage or mitigate things? Like, for instance, I have cards that trigger based on the Civil War, or cards that trigger based on the 13th Amendment, and I clearly don't have the 13th Amendment in my hand. So I can kind of play my cards knowing that the 13th Amendment is somewhere in there, because I know it's for sure in here. I just don't know where it's at. And it hasn't showed up yet, so I can play accordingly. I can hold on to it for later, for one card for the next round, and hope I get the next round, or I can just throw it away and just get rid of that card, get rid of that advantage. So it ends up being a closed system to where you know all the cards, and that could be a problem. I'm putting in my negatives because it's kind of a neutral point, but I'm putting in my negatives because when both sides know every single card that can show up on each side, the question becomes like, should we go through this whole dog and pony show, or should we just go ahead and concede the game because clearly you're going to win? And I feel like that's a pairing to pairing question, but it would be cool if there was some way to include like a set of cards that was in game 1 and a set of cards was in game 2, or like, here's the body of cards you have, like double the card count, and then you use half the cards for the game and the other half you don't. It will make the game a little weird, a little strange. But one game I want to use as an example is going to be PAX Transhumanity. In PAX Transhumanity, you have a set of project cards, and you only use a third of the cards every game, or actually a fourth of the cards every game. So you have a whole stack of like 150 cards, but you only use like 30 of them every game or something. So that means that every game you have a different combination of stuff. And for PAX Transhumanity, that kind of works because PAX Transhumanity has a card system that kind of works like Ascension or any deck building game where you have like a row of cards in the middle and you kind of take those and work with them. Not exactly. I'm just trying to explain it simplistically. That works for that game. I don't know if that can work for this game though, because a lot of cards are reliant on other cards to show up. And outside of the Oppobot, every card is going to show up. So for instance, in one game that I played, I had a card for the Civil War, and the Civil War never showed up. It's one of Opposition Bot's cards, and of those 2 cards that Opposition Bot removed, one of them was the Civil War. So therefore, the Civil War never showed up. So that was strange, but it happened. So I guess it could happen. You don't see everything. So again, delicate balance thing. I think it's a negative overall because it means that if I play this game 5 times or play this with 7 different people, I'm getting to the point where I know the strategy. I figured it out. I've solved it. I've solved the world hunger. The only thing that's preventing me from just steamrolling this game is the order the cards come out in and how my dice are rolling. But even then, I have ways to mitigate that with dice rolls with my buttons as long as I manage it properly. So, I'm including my negatives, but I understand that that's kind of a neutral. The other part that I mentioned is that mechanically things are a little bit boring. What I mean by that is that outside of, hey, I got this chain of actions I can do, with the way that I approach the strategy, and me personally, I haven't tried any other strategies, just tried the one that worked, and I had a great time. Tried one that didn't work, and I didn't have as great of a time, but I still survived. I mean, I lost, but I still survived. And that strategy is to basically try to amass power, and then just try to do big moves at the end. And if I'm able to do that, then things go a little bit better, things felt good, and if that's every game of try to get the states into my collection and then play them later when we got the voting going on, that sounds like mechanically simplistic. I do live stream here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/CulBlu. That's CulBlu. I mostly mention that because we have a raid of 14 people. Thank you for the raid, Joe Adultman. Nice. Thank you for the raid, Joe Adultman. Welcome. I'm in the middle of my review here for Votes for Women, talking about the negatives here. Continuing with my negatives, mechanically simplistic games tend to kind of have this problem. And when I say mechanically simplistic, I want to be very, very specific in clarifying what I mean. This game has a mechanically straightforward system for the purposes of being approachable and easy for people to jump into. When I say mechanically simplistic, as somebody who has sat down and played things like Stellar Horizons 2, D-Day at Omaha Beach, World Order, or you can consider that on the complicated side of things, even High Frontier, somebody who's played some games that have a lot of involved steps. I can say that this game is definitely mechanically simplistic compared to those, but I do understand that this game is not simple. It's not straightforward. There are some tiny nuanced rules that you got to pay attention to, like how to get your buttons back or how to get your little things over here, because you got to roll dice and stuff. You have the opportunity to influence that and do it directly, but it's a negative because I think this game is mechanically simplistic enough that if you play it multiple times, like maybe 4 or 5 times, it's all right, I guess I'm amassing power again, and all right, I didn't get all the cards, but I got most of them, so let me try it now and try to get my cubes to cube properly and get my dice to dice correctly. And you end up in a situation where it ends up being very samey. So, by virtue of how the game is designed, those 2 things kind of combine to be maybe just 1 negative, 2 neutral points become 1 negative of a closed card system, so nothing's changing up to be dynamic, except for maybe these cards, for the strategy cards, or how they show up, or there's a little variety in my state cards because you get 9 out of 12, sure. But I'm saying that there's, you play it 6 times and the game is kind of the same game every time. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. The dice rolls are really the only bit of chaos that helps out. Well, in the order your cards come out in. I have to keep acknowledging that because I keep forgetting that, the order these show up definitely does impact the game greatly. So, I call it a negative overall. I don't think it's a major negative. I don't think it's I'm never playing this game again negative. It's just I'm not playing this game 3 times in a row negative. I mean, rarely will I ever sit down and play a game 3 times in a row. But if I compare this to something like Shallow Sea is a game, I guess, kind of in the same context as something like Cascadia, to where there's so much variety from game to game based on what gold cards you have, based on what pieces showed up, based on what set you're playing. If you make your own set, you can do some stuff. So you can always change it up. And this game lacks variety in that regard. So I guess it's unfair to compare this because I'm literally comparing apples to hand grenades. But I do want to call it as a negative because I do feel like it's important to note that, yes, if this is your only board game, you might get bored playing it multiple times in a row. So definitely space it out. This is maybe at most twice a year game for me. And if I have somebody who's really interested in history, or if I'm trying to show it my niece and nephews and show them the history of stuff, I will gladly break this game out because I think it does a phenomenal job of bringing the information forward. about this. And speaking of which, I would be remiss, I would be very sad if I didn't show you all of these extra documents that are in the box. There are a bunch of extra documents in the box. So again, I watched a lot of interviews with Tori Brown, the designer of the game, and she mentioned in a few of her interviews that they were asking her, hey, what other documents would you want to include in the game, just like supplemental things to kind of have fun. And they say, hey, send us a few. And they were expecting like 4 or 5. Like she sent like 30, and they included, I think they included in the game like 19 of them. So let me kind of clear this up so we can. Yeah, we're done with that. We can move that out of the way. We have here different little historical artifacts, and you can watch Edward from Heavy Cardboard go through it. I think he went through a little bit more detail. And I don't know if Tori Brown did a video where she talks about each one, but these are all different things that are recreations from the various time periods that were around the women's suffrage, getting the 19th Amendment through. So this is really cool because like I feel like these physical things, like yes, this is just a piece of paper, and you could have easily put this on like Google Drive or something and have people look at it. But it's something about like having it printed out and like what's what I'm looking for, replicated, recreated. I'm trying to find a word. I can't find it. I'm word searching. Clearly, I need to eat some food. But having this thing kind of recreated in the spirit of what it would have existed in the past, and that's really cool. So here, like I said, you have a ballot for people to vote if they're for or against women's suffrage. Here you have this little letter here. Looks like a letter that somebody says, as one of your constituents, I wish to express my disapproval of a women's suffrage federal amendment. The platform of your party has declared in favor of state action and blah, blah, blah. So there's more stuff going on. So it's just really cool to have these documents because like, it kind of brings the theme and like takes the history and says, hey, no, this isn't just a thing that we're playing with. Like we're not going to we're not going into the fields and just having fun playing around. No, this is the battle that happened. We're not just going back in the past and just looking at all the retro things going on. It's like, no, there's real stuff going on. People were for, people were against, people were adamant. There were crimes. Sometimes there were not crimes. Some people did crimes like go to vote when they weren't allowed to vote because they weren't enfranchised. And it's a whole thing. Like, it's just so, I don't know, there's just so much history here. And I just love the fact that all this is here. Like, again, this is a recreation of it. It has like a little price, 5 cents. New Orleans, Louisiana, 50 cents per year. So you can get 10 cents off. And you have to consider like the scale of money. I don't know what that would be equivalent to nowadays. Volume 1, number 1, nothing on the back, but it's just kind of like the front, like a little flyer here for the conference. Hey, and here's some advocacy paperwork. I guess it's not one of the historical recreations. And I want to get to the newspaper section because I thought that was really cool. Oh, here it is. And I watched an interview where she talked about this. So she basically went out and found clippings that were related to the women's suffrage movement and kind of put these, like stitch these all together, like look through like, microfiche and all this stuff, and stitched all these together to kind of create like a replicated newspaper. So it's not a real newspaper that existed in this specific form. But these are things like, all this text here is referring to things that were related to women's suffrage. And then White and Hayes, fellatiate woman. Oh gosh. So is this fellatiate? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that means something else. I don't know. Let's keep going. And we have down here, we have some advertisements that are kind of like, hey, period piece advertisements. And then back here, select your first now at the savings of fully 1/3, blah, blah, blah. So you got like ads and stuff. Like, this is just cool. Like, I think this is just neat. This is just really, really cool. I have not sat down and read through all this. I will one day, just not today. But I think that this definitely like pushes this game over the edge when it comes to like using this as a teaching implement to like kind of teach people about the women's suffrage movement, people who are not aware of it, even people who like myself are tangentially aware of it. Like, it was very important, and I know it's like critical to our society to make sure you enfranchise people to vote. Again, as a black person, I empathize with that greatly, especially when they keep trying to, they as in the people who are trying to prevent us from voting, are trying to disenfranchise swaths of people with pinpoint accuracy, which is crazy. That was one of the rulings here in North Carolina, by the way. If you didn't know what I was talking about, feel free to look it up. Laser accuracy, I think is what the phrasing was from a court. But it's just so cool to like have all these different pieces of documentation here. You can read through it, you can absorb it, you can really like really reckon with what was going on, what people were fighting for. Again, people on both sides, and this is not, in my opinion, this is not really a both sides issue. This is more so saying that there were multiple sides to the battle for women's suffrage. There was one correct side, in my opinion, which is enfranchise them, dagnabbit. But also, there were sides who were saying, this is why we don't want women to vote, because when you get women to vote, it dilutes my vote or something. I don't know. Insert dumb talking point here from patriarchy. But it's just so nice to have all these things. And again, there's like a ton of these different documents compared to some other games that have had like, you know, these kind of recreation of documents. And I just love that these are included. Will I look at these every single time? No. Did I forget these were in the box? Yes. I remembered because I looked at the box because I was looking for Tori's name. And I was like, oh yeah, these documents. So that's just a neat thing that they included. So I'm very happy that they included that, because if you're trying to use this game as a teaching implement, whether you're using a classroom, whether you're using it to, like I said, for me, just trying to show my niece and nephew the history. My niece and nephew were born after 2010. So, you know, they have maybe only tangential clues about how this is all done and how what was all going on. There's so much like dripping in this game, and I love that this game takes that and it implements that into their mechanics. I complain about this all the time. I mentioned John Company and Core Discovery. Core Discovery is a game that I will always give grief for not doing more with the history of what it's dealing with, which is Manifest Destiny, or the United States basically colonizing the West and breaking treaties with the native persons and doing genocides back in the days to settle the West. But I don't think Core Discovery does enough with it. Core Discovery is a phenomenal game. I love the mechanics of it. It just doesn't do anything with it. John Company is the exact opposite. John Company is a great game, in my opinion. It's a really interesting social experiment. It does a lot with the history and actually makes you, like, the mechanics talk about the history. And I think in this game, the mechanics are talking about the history. The mechanics match the history. I think it does a great job of it. I have qualms with the boringness that comes down to, like, all right, I need 2 more states. Come on, just let me get my 4. You keep removing my cubes. I put 4 more cubes back. And it's like cube pushing game. But even with that complaint, I still think that this is one of the exemplars of using the history, having the history show up in the mechanics. So I think it does a great job of all those things. So, okay. All right. Twitch chat's here. Space Tile says, love the look of those documents. Nicely done. I agree. Nicely done. Huge shout out to Fort Circle for including all those. I honestly, if Tori said that she had 30 documents, I want to see all 30. Just put all 30 in there. Yeah, it might cause box lift, but just give me all 30 documents. And then Slug Biker says, does it address that only, let me go back. Does it address that this only gave votes to white women? So this game does not, let me pause for a second. So the 19th Amendment gave enfranchisement for women to vote. So theoretically, the enfranchisement, the passing of the 19th Amendment gave rights for all women to vote. The problem, and this game does touch on this a lot, the problem with that is that white supremacy exists. So because white supremacy exists, there are a lot of efforts to gerrymander, there are a lot of efforts to suppress the vote of African Americans, black people, anybody who was not white or considered white, Irish people at the time, German folks at the time, any immigrants at the time were not considered white, and therefore they were disenfranchised, they were brutalized, beat, traumatized, all kinds of things. This game doesn't talk about that particular part a ton, but it does have hints of it. It does have mentions of it when it talks about things like the difference of the yellow side versus the purple side. The purple side, from my understanding, is more on the white supremacist side, and the yellow side is like, hey guys, let's all get along on the more enfranchised side. So the game doesn't explicitly talk about that like in the forefront from what I've seen, especially in the card text that shows, in the card play that shows up. But the game definitely does not shy away from the fact that, yeah, the purple side was like, hey, we want white folks to vote. We kind of don't want everybody else. And let me be more specific. Let me go get the cards. So the 15th Amendment is the cards I'm referring to. And this is where the game, I think, does a great job of kind of handling the subject material without shying away from it. Where is the 15th Amendment? 1 second, I gotta find the card. Oh, did I pass it? Am I not able to read? What's happening? Oh, there it is. So here's the 15th Amendment. And It's a great question. It's a great question. So here's a 15th Amendment, and this is a 15th Amendment card. So this 15th Amendment card says, playable to Civil War is not in effect, do some stuff and get some things. The most important thing to note with this is you get to add 2 pillars of Congress, which remember, the suffragist needs 6. So that's a huge, that's 1/3 of the way there. Holy crap, that's a strong card. And then you get to add 8 influence anywhere on the map, no more than 2 per state. Sign me up. I want that card immediately, I say. And then on the opposition side, you have this card, Southern Resentment. If the 15th Amendment is in effect, they get to add a ton of cubes to a lot of different spots. They have another card that turns the 15th Amendment on its head too. Let me find it. Oh, okay, here we go. Here's another card. It's not necessarily 15th Amendment, but it's gerrymandering. This one removes all yellow cubes from 2 states with the most yellow cubes. So if you're not balancing out your cubes, it just removes them. And it does it by gerrymandering, which gerrymandering was generally done historically for disenfranchising people that the white supremacists, people in power / white supremacists, did not want to vote. So as a result of that, removing all the yellow cubes implies that the yellow cubes were more on the side of we want everybody to vote. We want the black people, we want the Irish folks, we want everybody to vote. We want to enfranchise everybody. Whereas on the purple side was kind of cool with a little bit of supremacy here from the white side. Let me get hold on. There's another card. Oh, I might be out. There's one more card that will kind of push my point home, and that card is an early card. Here it is. The 15th Amendment, the 15th divides suffragists. So this one says that play at the 15th Amendment is in effect, remove all purple cubes from 4 states with the most purple cubes. Suffragists lose 2 buttons. That's a crazy, devastating impact to the suffragist player. But you see here in the text, it explains many suffragists objected to the amendment, to an amendment protecting voting rights based on citizens' race, color, or previous condition of servitude, but not gender. So again, this is where you get into a little bit of the nuance, because on the purple side, I said earlier, I used a shorthand of, white supremacists. They don't care about black people. They're racist. Whatever terms you want to use. But the reality of it is that, there's people who are actively fighting for, no, we want it for everybody. We don't want it just for one gender. But the act that they did for it is in support of white supremacy, because instead of saying, hey, let's fight harder to try to get this back, of course, within the context of how they could fight, as women in society and how society, infantilizes women in general in America, especially in that time period, they just said, no, we're packing up our stuff and going home. They're literally saying we're removing 4 whole states worth of purple cubes on this board, which means that if we look at the board state right now, I only have purple cubes on the board, really. So if all 4 of these purples disappear and that disappears, my board presence is scant. That's devastating that card shows up. But it basically is telling that story of hey, we really wanted everybody to be enfranchised. And again, the things that they're fighting for, the moral that they're fighting for, the platform that they're presenting is we want it for everybody, not just based on one's race or previous condition of servitude, which is not euphemism, but it's basically implying slavery. So people who were previously slaves were getting the right to vote, the 15th Amendment, and this is also understood to be mostly black men. So going back into the women's suffrage thing, it's women's suffrage. It's either all of us votes or none of us votes. So the yellow side is all of us votes or none of us votes. The purple side is all of us votes or none of us votes, but I also don't want the blacks to vote. So if you could just make that not happen, you know what? I'm just taking my ball and going home. So again, you have this nuance, you have this history, you have this stuff that's talked about, and it's talked about the schisms that are between. So again, going to your question there, while this game doesn't explicitly say that the 19th Amendment gave white women the right to vote, there is implied stuff like this, and of course, it requires a little bit more insight and a little bit more understanding of the subject matter. And I have a very vague understanding of the subject matter because I just like listening to documentaries about stuff like this. And my understanding might even be flawed, so please feel free to correct me. But what I'm trying to say is that, a lot of the disenfranchisement of black folks happened more so because of Jim Crow and racism and all that stuff, as opposed to the actual things that they're doing here on suffrage side. Although there are a lot of suffragists who are very much on the white supremacy bandwagon, so I don't know. It's a complicated conversation. I need to go brush up on my history clearly, but let's keep going. All right, so Slug Biker here says, seems like at least it will spur some good discussions. Exactly, and that's the last thing. So kind of, my review here is getting a little bit long-winded. We're well off of the negatives. We're well away from the negatives, by the way. We're getting back into the positives, but I just love the conversation that games like this bring up. I used John Company as a phenomenal example of a game that brings about conversation. It is hard to play that game with some people who are very much anti-capitalism, which I understand. I am also an anti-capitalist. I am very much not a capitalist myself. Anybody who says they're a capitalist, I just look at them sideways, like, okay, that's a weird choice, but you do you, boo. But for me, that game brings up really interesting conversations about capitalism, colonialism, imperial ambitions, and all those kind of things. This game, Votes for Women, brings up a lot of questions about that intersectionality of being, a woman and black. Like, going to your question you brought up here, Select Bikers, like, if you were a black woman in a time period, did you get enfranchised by the 19th Amendment? No. The fight continued. Hell, there's black people who are still not enfranchised today, and it's 2026 here. So there are, there's a lot of conversations, a lot of nuance that happens with it. And I love the conversation that this game can inspire. Now, you don't have to dive into that conversation. There's some people who might actively avoid the conversation, but I feel like, hey, have the conversation, you cowards. I think it's a great conversation to have, especially if you want to understand how America is and how America got to where it is and how we can do better going forward and how we can, just understand each other. But I also want to emphasize that, yes, this game does bring up some phenomenal conversations, and I put that in high regards, which is why my review, as much as I'm kind of milquetoast a little bit on the mechanics, my review is going to be pretty high. Speaking of my rating, speaking of my review going into my rating, my overall rating in this game would definitely fall into the 7 out of 10. It is not as high as I want to go. Like, I want to say 7.5, but I don't feel I can justify 7.5 mechanically. So I think 7 is a pretty good call. I feel like the history of this game is doing a lot of heavy lifting for this game. Mechanically, the game is very straightforward and simple. I've never played 1960, The Making of a President, but apparently this game kind of follows in that game's footsteps. So take that how you will if you have played it. But I have played, like I said, other warlike games. I'm trying to get into the whole coin system games with like, Fire in the Lake and all that fun stuff, Distant Plain and all that. So as a result, I've seen cube pushing games or warlike games that have this kind of back and forth with like attrition. Oh, Twilight Struggle. Man, I forgot about that one. Twilight Struggle, yeah. That's been brought up as a comparison for this game too because of how the influence stuff works back and forth with the tug of war with influence. But I think even with the game that's kind of mechanically milquetoast for me personally, I will definitely play this game just because of the history every single time. Like if somebody says they really want to play Votes for Women, I'll say, oh heck yeah, as long as we can have a discussion about the history and what's going on and read the cards and read all the little tasty facts here about the different characters like Pioneer Women. Like it's just so cool learning about different states that I've never existed in. I was born and raised in North Carolina over here on the East Coast, and I've been as far as California, so I traveled to California. But as far as places that I've stayed for any significant amount of time, the furthest I've been is Texas. I stayed in Texas for 2 weeks with some family members. We were visiting for the holidays. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't have full exposure to every single thing that's happened on the east or on the west side of our country. I don't even have exposure for a lot of things that happen on the north side. So having this game talk about those different areas, talk about the different fights, it's just so good. To the point to where my rating, if I were taking away the history for this game, this will fall flat as like a 6. At most a 5.5, or sorry, at lowest a 5.5. I think the mechanics are reasonable enough to say a 6 at the lowest. But I think that the history can take this game and just elevate it to that next level for me to get to a 7 out of 10. Which again, a 7 out of 10 is not super high on my rating. Like the highest I've rated a game actively has been a 9 out of 10, and I think I was Small Time Heroes. A spoiler alert if I haven't released that video already. But between 6, like if it passes the 6.5 line, it's going to live in my collection forever until I have to replace with something. So it's definitely past that 6.5 line. I'm looking forward to sharing this game with my friends and family. I'm looking forward to just seeing more discussions about this game. I'm looking forward to hearing more interviews with Tori, because Tori Brown's been doing a lot of interviews over the time this game's been out. And every single time she has an interview, I learn something new. It's like, oh my gosh, tell me more. And I can start looking up more documentaries and looking at more books. So just learning more about this subject matter, it just gets me excited about the history. So I personally love the history this game talks about. I understand some people just don't care about the history, but I would make the argument that this game deserves your time just for the history that it's talking about and presenting alone. Mechanically, it's fine. It's reasonable. You have your strategy you can go against or go with. You have your different ways you can adjust, and it makes you think. You roll some dice, and sometimes the dice, sometimes the dice don't dice. But otherwise, it's just kind of an okay game. But again, the subject alone, I can't emphasize this enough. The subject matter alone and how it presents it is just so good that this game is just definitely a keeper for me. So that's going to be it for my entire rant and ramble about the whole thing. I do want to bring up another game from conveniently Fort Circle, which is Shores of Tripoli. I want to bring this game up as a comparison for those who are wondering about why I'm saying the history matters so much for this game for me. Shores of Tripoli is an okay game. I think I gave it a 7.5 out of 10 because I think mechanically it had a lot more going on than I think this game does. But Shores of Tripoli, the history of that game is about the United States is trying to fight pirates to establish the shores of Tripoli to make sure that we can do free commerce trade back and forth without having to deal with pirates. And that subject matter is so boring, I don't care. I have no care. I mean, it's interesting history that I didn't know about, and I can learn more about it. But it's just like, oh man, I actively don't care. I really don't care about the history on that. So for me, that one fell flat historically because I just didn't care. I think mechanically it was a short enough game, and the mechanics were like, the mechanics were mechanicking to where I kind of really liked what was going on. So I gave it, like I said, 7.5 out of 10 if I recall correctly, or maybe a 7 out of 10. So I do think it's a better game mechanically than this one, but the history in this one and all that stuff like is enough to, again, I can't in good conscience go above a 7 because I don't feel the mechanics are strong enough for this game for me personally. But I think that there's a lot to love with this game. But I'm bringing up Shores of Tripoli to say that like a game with history that I don't care about can still rate pretty high. But because I like the history of this game is rating a little bit higher than what I might want to put it. So 7 out of 10. Shores of Tripoli is also by Fort Circles, and that one happens to have history I don't care about. Fine game, sure. This is also a fine game, but the history is just like, I just want to play it again to read the cards. Matter of fact, I just might read the cards. Yeah, I'll just read the cards. I mean, not right now, but okay. All right, enough of me rambling and ranting. That's going to be coming to the conclusion. Let me know what you all think of the game yourselves. I tried to be as fair of a review as possible, knowing that I'm really excited about the history and not go too crazy with the rating. But I also do think this game is definitely worth a spot on anybody's shelf because of the history it talks about and because of the subject matter. And it just presents in such a way that just brings up conversation every time. I don't know, I just love everything about it. Oh, also, I didn't talk about the components. Sorry, I said I was going to mention it, so I'll mention it here. Look at these components. Look at this. Look at this. You get like chunky check marks, little chunky X's. You get like little chunky meeples and cubes. I think that's great. I do think that this is probably one of the things that made this game cost as much as it did. I think this is like an $80 game, which is a little bit sus when it comes to like mechanically what's there. But the history and the mechanics, or sorry, history and the components justified enough. So call it what you want. Sorry. Question in the chat is, does it come with a tray? No, it does not come with a tray. This tray is from Q for Me. I'm not sponsored by them. I can send you a link for what this one is. I'm not sponsored by Q for Me, but if Q for Me wants to sponsor me, feel free to reach out to me. But this tray is, this is their, is it 24? 4. Yeah, I think it's their, 20. Their 20 thing tray. I don't know. I can find the link for it and send it to you so you can know about it. But it is a great tray, and it helps the box lid lift go to 0. So I appreciate it. But the components in this game are really good. I really do like the columns. I know Tori has talked about this specifically in a few of her interviews about the chunky columns that she really loved, and I think that these are really cool. I mean, they're overly chunky. You could literally just put like a little disc and call it a day for the Congress. But I like the fact that we did like pillars because it's just, I don't know. These are just nice. These just feel nice. These are just cool. So yeah. Okay. All right, I wanted to make sure, I would be very sad if I didn't mention the components, but I love the components in this game too. Also, if you don't like the game and just like the history, you can keep the cards and then just kind of salvage the game for something else. And then you can take all these phenomenal components and use them for other games. So hey, if you're like, hey, I just want the history, I don't care about the game, buy the game anyway and just use the components for something else. Those X's and checks come in handy for a lot of other games too. I know Heavy Cardboard, they do a lot of videos with those X's and checks. I don't think they use the actual checks from this game, but they use the X's from this game, from what I understand. All right, okay, so that's gonna be it for the video though. I've rambled on long enough. Thank you all for joining, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. Like I said, let me know in the comments what you all think of the game yourselves, and hope you all enjoyed it. And as always, I will see you all whenever.